Hello, it's Noah Vortex here, and I figured I'd read a piece of writing I did a while ago, just purely because I'm bored. This is a piece of writing I wrote quite a while ago. It's quite nihilistic. I don't agree with most of it. A lot of it's satire. A lot of it's quite stupid, quite aggressive, quite nihilistic in tone. But I thought I'd read it anyway because it's good to kind of get a perspective on where you've been to kind of figure out, where next. Feel that we like philosophy, I guess. So it's kind of transgressive, I suppose, this pose, because it's quite in your face. There's a lot of swearing, so here we go. And like I said, I'm not my proudest piece of writing by any means, such imagination. For the love of all, do what the fuck you want. This is a piece of writing. I did a preamble here as well. This is a piece of writing I did earlier this year when I was a much more angry man, and it shows posting up for posterity and as an archive, but I've modified many of my positions since writing this. Still some interesting ideas and concepts explored, though it was loaded with a jet black nihilism throughout and a great deal of sexism, which are now rejected as a thinking individual. It was always meant to be partly satirical and should be read with that in mind. Don't take it too seriously. It's mostly a send-up of Crowley's philosophies of hedonism and selfishness, which I draw from in some ways, but also reject in others, and like I said, I was a more angry person when I wrote it. That's enough covering my arse. Let's just read the fucking thing. For the love of all, do what the fuck you want. On the weakness of gender-based philosophies, paradigms of separation, and why we are all weird motherfuckers floating in an abstract weird space which we'll never truly understand and should not wish to fully. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Welcome to the chaos sphere. Feminism. Anything that starts with an ism in language I would have an inane distaste for, as soon as you sell your living soul to any reality troll, you look at a living embodiment of that thing or thought pattern. So few human beings realise that all is chaos, and that chaos is sublime in its own internal insanity, and that it is the true and eternal nature of all things. You can change any second, any minute. Each now can turn into a wow in the blink of an eye. That should be beautiful. Instead, it is considered hedonistic and self-obsessed in the dull, languid corners of the unenlightened, religious or orthodox philosophy systems on the whole. To wish to follow your own desires and impulse, and to understand them at the deepest levels, to dig that deep, to plough those fields of the self, to cut under the skin of your spiritual being, your actual living flesh, to arrive at truth. Nothing is true, everything is permitted. Old chaos magic saying. The idea of a world full of male and female values dominating as guiding principles is obscene and ridiculous. Not just obscene, but counterpoint to nature. Nature does not discriminate, and these opposing principles, male and female, black and white, all dualities, are constantly in opposition. What so few of the dimmer humanoid creatures of the world today realise is that violence and revolutions and cycles are the nature of all things in the universe and nature, and that it is difference and tension between opposing opposites that creates dynamism, change and progress. Marx called this the idea of new myths emerging from discord, thesis, antithesis, and it's one of the few ideas that I think that old red-birded German got right, one of the few concepts he pretty much nailed full whack on the smacker with a good left-wing hook. Now on to more personal matters. I should at some of this form a first-person perspective. After all, I'm talking fundamentally about questions of human nature, and I am a human, though sometimes I wish I was not, looking at some of the lesser excuses for human beings, or more often in the contemporary world, clones of a short ADD popular culture who dilly-dally around everywhere, thinking they're free dutifully as ghosts or cogs in an enormous, uncold, unfeeling machine. I know within the deepest stirrings of my beings that I have enormous wells of compassion inside me, but I also, on the flip side, cannot deny I am the truly horrendous things I and every human being is capable of, when pushed to extremes. I am a potential murderer as much as a saint, a potential rapist as much as a protector or guardian. I say I am in the abstract, since I have never murdered, never raped, never done so much that would be considered truly debased or evil. But I am aware that these desires exist in me, even if in barely quantifiable doses, and as such are forces that could be exploded into the world were mere circumstances arranged in the right chaotic manner. On a bad day, possibilities that could emerge were stars to align wrongly on one cursed night. Awareness of your inner bastard means that you can tell it to fuck off. Being aware of your own evil and your own demonic side is the only way beyond it, and to also transcend your own dark side. The more you repress a thing, the more power it holds, as any pathetic boy-fiddling Catholic priest can attest. Now on to some cheerful analysis of feminist claptrap nonsense and bullshit, and then men's claptrap nonsense and bullshit afterwards. In the year 2525, it's about to be another glorious new year in our faultless female First Republic. Long live the mother, the sister, the daughter. Long live the sisterhood. Radio announcement, 2089 AD. 2090 AD. Females have finally smashed patriarchy, but nothing really changes. We're just now ruled over by cunts instead of dicks. Which brings me to feminism. Feminism first, because it is the most alien to me in both the abstract and the concrete, the most prime for destruction as a framework due to its increasing popularity, and also one of the cool, easiest contemporary paradigms to destroy by virtue of its own degrading relevance to anything resembling reality. Before I destroy an idea, I should understand why it must be destroyed, give me my justifications, and then give a no-nonsense, no bullshit answer for what I think should replace it. Feminism comes in many forms, the most popular of which, at least on the internet, is that which focuses on the patriarchy as a symbolic symbol of oppression. It is a popular feminist notion that centers around the concept that women are oppressed from achieving their full potential because men are acting as agents of the patriarchy, keeping their full potential suppressed through media, through institutions, power structures, basically through all the dominant power structures of our society at present, and in fact since time immemorial. All men have been oppressing women, and by not directly, implicitly rejecting their vision of what patriarchy is, men are supporting its continued existence. I said symbolic symbol of oppression a few paragraphs back because that is what this is. It's an easy get-out clause of a philosophical framework that has been dreamed up by desperate females and sociology majors looking for a pillow in which to project all their own failures onto the external image of the male. You just cannot argue with one of these women or men about the existence of the framework. You cannot question their basic assumptions, just like any good communist, fascist, pro-market, capitalist, Thatcherite or other brainwashed ideologue, because they're the pre-programmed answer for everything, as all brainwashed beings do. This is the basic nature of program realities and ideology in general. Always in flux constantly, energy, thought, matter, desire, etc. Genuine good points, so okay, we'll let you off then bits of feminism. Sex impulse from the personal point of view. The problem with all these gender-based philosophies is that they forget that human sexuality and nature itself is more complex than they can account for. I like to envision reality as a fractal. As soon as you understand part of it, it will confuse and confound you with some contradictory information. Indeed, as I believe I've already stated, that all nature is mysterious and chaotic and will probably never get it or understand it all. It is noble to aspire to more, but who really wants to be God? Too much responsibility for a conscious being to take. But I digress. On to the sex impulse from a personal point of view. I can only desire and sexual desire personally from my own personal sexual preferences and desires, which in some ways mirror that of nature in that they are chaotic, free, fractal-like, diverse, and somewhat contradictory. I believe this is so far most people on Earth, but often people don't articulate it. All my sexual fantasies revolve around hierarchies of control, dominance, submission, etc. It is my belief that all sex can be deduced down to these factors, the sensual and tactile, the transgressive, and the factors of control or submission or hierarchies of control and bartering. This is just speaking plainly, to be honest, and if you hide or deny that, well done, you're basically a 21st century version of a sexless, repressed nun or priest, and likewise you will live a sad, cloistered existence, denying yourself the desires which are your birthright by virtue of your genitals and your body and your flesh. Ask yourself this: if God meant you not to use your prick or your cunt, why did he design you one? Not that he, she exists, but for the sake of argument, for my own personal joy of causing offence. There you go. Onwards. So, obviously, not in a good place when I wrote most of that, but I digress. On to motherfuckers, which is the, again, extremely nihilistic, ranty continuation of what I've been going on about, which, like, most of which have kind of evolved out of, to be honest, but just posting that as an archive. Motherfuckers, aka the many and varied ways the human race may fuck up the future. Extreme female-based society visions and why they are wrong. Extreme feminist society, the male creature and sex instinct has been wiped from the face of the planet, and all females procreate via historic genetic sperm database of notable figures in history hooked into the planet excels. Female genetic engineers manipulating the genes to force the sex to be female. This works for a few hundred years until the inbreeding inherent in using the same genes again and again and creates weakness in the genetic chain, and the world becomes a genetic wasteland and a literal wasteland. Then the sun dies, and anyone that remains is burnt in the flames. Sound great. Go to the sisterhood. Post-human female society. A transhumanist female bulk society where reproductions occur via cloning, so you end up fucking your sister without even realising it. Ugh, am I right? Also, as a society is over-reliant on technology to improve reproduction, it runs the risk of invariably dying out within a small amount of time. When a natural disaster occurs, it breaks the over-reliance on said technology. Could be successful if they adapt their bodies to adapt with extreme environments like space and extreme weather systems, however, so there might be some faint hope that they can escape the sun death, which would be a start. So not impossible. Extreme male-based societies, now let's just start hitting the dicks. Extreme male-based societies and why they are wrong. Extreme male-only societies. Man's worst instincts kick in after some war started by some guy and would decide to wipe out women as they considered weaker and more inefficient at that killing each other bit we are so fond of. Men then reproduce with a system of tribal competitions broadcast in the arena, a VR fighting game. Weak specimens are disposed of naturally in the arena through the acts of competitive violent behaviour, while the strongest get to mix their genes in the lab with the king. This again leads to breeding and weakness, as the intellectual or elite who create the gene systems are all killed in the arena, so again you have a self-defeatist extremist paradigm. Oh, and we die when the sun dies because the males are too busy honing their muscles to think of anything constructive vis-a-vis the sun death and the aforementioned killing of the intellectuals, which has left all men as preening body obsessed metrosexuals. That sounds fun, doesn't it? New Dark Ages. Inquisition's denial of sex instinct, cult spreads. The sex instinct is denied by the male ruling class, and any variance from the prevailing class is met with Inquisition, the priesthood of various religious creeds. Christ, Muhammad, etc. become the only male figures that the priesthood and nunnery can aspire to. A non-physical relationship, we devolve into mindless sexless beings, completely devoid of independent thought until the sun dies and we all burn, screaming in its flames. Not the best one, but at least we can all be in heaven, TM. Outside the box versions of why they're probably wrong, but could work a little bit. Free market pervert capitalism sex societies. Sex and porn are used instead of monetary systems that exchange currency. Wall Street is renamed fucking into Wall Street, and they only deal with orgies at the top elite of society and complicated gangbangs. Goods are only created in exchange to increase secondary pleasure, and everyone lives in communal sex hives. Sex is exchanged via the internet to pay for everything, so if you walk in at the news agents and you want those eggs, you have to drop your trousers or skirt and have a webcam wank. We don't escape the sun death of the sun because we are too busy wanking off and having sex to notice or care until we die screaming, of course, in the burning heat. On the plus side, you will get lots of pussy, penis, arse, or whatever orifice is your orifice of choice, though will also be dead. Swings and roundabouts. Or is that swingers and roundabouts? Am I right? Why aren't you laughing? Androgynous mainframe. We crack that whole mind-body interfacing with machines problem and will upload ourselves into a hyperdimensional machine mainframe as androgynous beings of pure information. We then proceed to possess people and influence other worlds in the multiverse, a bit like the Time Lords in Doctor Who. We can shift bodies and forms through technology. Gender is irrelevant, as we all hedonistic borgs of the post-millennial. Again, this one is probably over-reliant on technology as a basis, but at least we might escape the flames of the sun, possibly. Genetically engineered seahorse post-human society. We become hermaphrodites through genetic engineering and reproduced asexually. This would work, I guess, for a while and just get rid of the need for binary genders, which would settle that whole men are from Mars, Venus, women are from Venus thing that people always bang on about. This version would probably devolve down any of the aforementioned routes eventually, but it's good to have options open at the least. We might even make it so we can swim in space, maybe, as we will be strange, genetically engineered tranny beings, so we might escape the flames of a dying sun. Then we'll go to another planet or something and repeat ad infinitum until the Big Bang, TM 2.0, so yeah, could maybe. Religion. Spirituality as a concept is one that has existed since the dawn of time, and as such it does have some relevance to the human experience. We've always gathered around flaming fires, found solace in songs, and painted our innermost desires on cave walls. Spirit and spirituality, however, are quite a wonderful part for most religions in my view. Please let me explain. Spirit is an abstract of feeling that grabs you suddenly, a jolt, where the ancients would call God, but we should be more accurate in calling experience of divine selfhood, i.e. totality of your human journey. Ego death in some ways, an experience of unity, but also a death of a veil lifting into something more than just yourself. Religion warps this essential part of human nature, it says. Obey our laws, abide our doctrine, and you will acquire the divine. Sets up a barrier between ourselves and that sublime divinity within. And it is within, not beyond, as so many priests, ayatollahs, rabbis might have us believe. The anthropologist and psychedelic journeyman Terence McKenna spoke of a return to an archaic revival and revival of the sense spirit experience of the ancient shamanistic cultures, a return to the authentic experience of the body and the mind. I do believe that this is what is required. Experiment, find your lyrics, limits, explore your desires, take drugs, have weird sexual experiences, dance wildly around a fire, telling stories so bizarre they make your friends doubt your sanity. That's the only way we can move forward culturally, to embrace the positive aspects of a sublime madness and synthesize them into sanity, to make them the insane and the transgressive and the ordinary as taking the dog for a walk on a Sunday morning. Returning back to gender-based paradigms, all these philosophies are, I feel, just increasing ways to divide ourselves mentally into smaller and smaller boxes. We must become the fucking I am on a constant basis, make our very living act constant orgasm aimed at achieving oneness with the Godhead. To become the eternal orgasm is the only thing worth aspiring to now. I say hedonism equals good, asceticism equals bad. We are only granted limited time, a mere snapshot of existence on this planet before we spiral off into the giant atom and dissolve back into the universe from whence we came. So ignore all those who seek to limit your pleasure, limit your experimentations, limit your infinite will and desires, and place shackles around your soul. This is like tarot cards thing. Answers for the separated. Say to the king, your experience is limited to that you're not whole. Say to the queen, your experience is limited to that you're not whole. Say to the priest, blah 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 blah. Male, female, dictator with a D-I-C-K. The fool, your experience is fuller and you're closer to fullness, if not there already. And the trickster, you're there, bud. We think. Become a bit of everything. Take a bit of all the information about everything in and ride with your mind's most fevered dreams. You might just end up in paradise. But can you take much freedom? That much freedom? That's the question. The answer is up to you. Is that a deal? So yeah, that's a kind of... I mean, I wrote this pretty much 2 years ago now. And it is partly satirical. It's partly based taking Aleister Crowley's ideas, applying them into a contemporary context, being a bit being a bit aggressive in my language towards religion and kind of trying to stomp on a lot of sacred cows, I suppose, essentially. And I like that. I like doing that as a thinker sometimes. I'm not a nihilist, but I have a propensity to destroy sacred cows because sometimes they need to be destroyed. It's not like a violent destruction, it is a destruction of an idea. But then if you destroy an idea, you have to replace it with a better one, which I kind of have done then. Essentially saying we just become androgynous in some respects. That doesn't mean, obviously, that I'm not calling for people to physically start changing themselves into the opposite. I'm kind of, opposite gender or whatever. I'm saying, in some respects, I'm saying everybody just needs to kind of forget about that part. Well, obviously, not to insult people who go through that in the deepest level, but I'm saying it's kind of irrelevant, and obviously that's from my own personal perspective, and so I guess anyway, I'm just rambling now, but I think in terms of evolution, what humanity will evolve into remains to be seen, I suppose. Probably should be some kind of machine-man symbiosis, or machine-man, woman, human, really. But I was very angry when I wrote all that. It felt like a lot of bile coming up over. It didn't take me that long to write, really. I just spat it all out as a bunch of vomit, really, mental vomit. And it's pretty offensive to. I mean, I don't think my actual knowledge of feminism was really developed enough to at that point to actually provide a decent critique. I was just really all I was critiquing there was an extreme conception of what that is. And I kind of, like I said at the start, I kind of reject a lot of that which I wrote initially, but it was good as a basis for getting my cogs whirring over some other ideas and philosophies and all the rest of it. I guess what we're going to do now is just figure out how can I turn that kind of jet black nihilism, nothing matters and everything's going to die and blah, 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 into something that's actually productive instead of destructive, just destructive. Because as fun as being a destructive philosopher can be, and often it's really, really, really necessary, you have to wipe clean a slate of ideas and kind of destroy all the pre-existing ones before you can actually create something that actually has a cohesive framework that you can build on. But I'm rambling now, so I'm going to shut the fuck up. I've been Noir Vortex. That has been For the Love of All, Do What the Fuck You Want, which is a piece of irresponsible nihilist literature that you shouldn't take seriously.